Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are back this week for some more G.I. Joe Renegades. That is right. We are watching Renegades this week, episode 5, The Package, which if you grew up in Chicago in the 90s, there was a period of time when I think it was CKG rebranded themselves post-loop, and they called themselves 105.9 The Package, as if it was like this giant package of talent. It was all talk radio, and I love loop talk radio in the 90s. Don't get me wrong, but the name The Package for a radio station was absolutely horrific. So if anyone here is listening and was involved in the package decision, turn off your radio. You just stop listening to radio entirely. But I'm bearing the lead here, guys, because this week we have a special guest, he's a frequent friend of the show, and he's also been a frequent gifter for all of our giveaways. After Action Report's very own Josh Eggebeen. Josh, welcome back to Joe on Joe.
Thank you. It's nice to be back, and this time I just get to talk about G.I. Joe, and I don't have to be all hyping some book or something.
You're no hyping book this week. We're just chilling. We're talking G.I. Joe. I'm real excited. Listeners, if you're new to the show, this format, this is what I like, Joe on Joe Central format. This is the format where we watch an episode and we watch it along with you. So if you're new to the show, later on in the episode, we're going to say 1, 2, 3 and hit play, and we're going to watch episode 5, Renegades, called The Package. We're going to watch that together, and Josh and I are going to kind of Mystery Science Theater it with you so you can watch along and hear us in your ear. But before that, we end up talking about Josh and what he's all up to. And if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know what the score is. You know this is the tried and true method. This is how we have a lot of great fun. And so, Josh, what we're going to do, I think today we're going to get a code name out of you, because that's a part of this format as well. So I need to say it up top because I always forget it because it's been so long since I've done these. So you're gonna by the end of the show, we're gonna find you what your official Joe on Joe code name would be. Okay. Were you a member of the team? So we'll get to that. And if you're out there and you're new to the show, say hello on social media. It's at Joe on Joe Pod. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You could send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to be a guest on the show. We do it. It's real easy. We can do it online. Today, we're at Josh's crib out in, what city are we in?
West Covina.
West Covina. I'm not going to tell you where because it is AAR Central. But we're out here chilling, and we can do it online, and you can be a guest on the show, or just send me an email and write in and say that say hello. I love hearing from listeners. Josh has been on the show a few times. We've done multiple giveaways. Now we're recording this a little early, so I believe we've recently finished up our latest giveaway of the AAR books. And so we'll just touch base real quick. Josh, what is AAR? Like, what is that vibe? What are you doing with AAR?
So, of course, it's short for After Action Report, and it's a series of books that are basically comic guides or character guides. So we just in December finished a Kickstarter for a trivia and activity book, which is a different book. But most of our books are detailed books about the comics, ranging from 1982 to 2022 for all of the different publishers. And we have a book on number 21, on an 80-page book on a 22-page comic that has no words.
More detail about G.I. Joe 21 than you're ever going to want to know, let alone need to know. And yet when you finish it, it's a great read because you realize there's so much about that book and the lore of that book. Yeah. And it's touched so many areas of our fandom. That it's an awesome read. So I know we gave away some of those in our recent giveaway.
Yeah, I mean, for number 21 is become one of the most important issues in all of comic history because of its influence in so many ways. Mm-hmm. But really, I believe it because that came out right at the 2-year mark of the toy. The toy was doing really well, but it introduced that rivalry between Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, and I believe that particular issue saved the toy line and propelled it into what it was going to be by the time the cartoon arrived, because I think the cartoon was just arriving.
Fascinating that you just said saved. Mm-hmm. Do you think is that a choice, or do you think it propelled?
Well,
because Save, like, do you think it
propelled.
was? Do you think it was, floundering maybe, or?
Well, the tradition in the 80s was that toy lines never lasted that long. Right. I mean, 2-3 years. I mean, you look at like He-Man. He-Man was like a huge seller, and then it just bottomed out and dropped off, and never disappeared. But like their sales went way down only after like 2 years, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
And the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow rivalry that was created in number 21 is what still dominates the toy line today. And of course, before that, it was not introduced. You know what I mean? And that tattoo at the end on that last page is why I believe it's so important.
So
and of
huge.
course, it was silent, so there's a lot of artists who were our age as kids who read it and were like, "I want to be a comic book artist."
And is a function of it being silent, not having any dialogue. If listeners for some reason you've never read it, it allowed the reader to fill in the blank with whatever story they, at the time, whatever you thought it might have been.
Yeah.
Could they have been actual brothers? Could they have both
Right.
just hung out at the same tattoo parlor?
Yeah.
Could that have been a military unit? Like,
Right.
you don't know what that meant.
Yeah.
And every single listener absolutely would have had a slightly different observation of what that could possibly mean. And there's power in that.
So that's why we wrote a whole book on it. I mean, because I really, as a diehard G.I. Joe comic fan, believe that it's one of the most important comics in all of history. And when you look at top 100 lists, it's on every one of them.
As it should be. And listeners, he's not faking the funk. I've seen the vault. That's why we're just saying vaguely in West Covina, because it is the headquarters. I have a lot of comic books. But my collection is very wide and varied.
Yes.
Your collection is very specific.
Yes.
And it is an incredible gathering of every single comic book, every iteration. Or you're still amassing it.
Yes.
But like you're looking at all the international books which we've talked about when we've had you on the show before. All the international books, all the crossovers, all the variations, all the small kids books, that they put out there, the annuals, and we're talking annuals in other countries, not just promo pieces that were in an issue of Ghostbusters you showed me, a British
the real
Ghostbusters
UK,
right,
which had a little 4-page G.I. Joe story in it.
And your collection is comprehensive and impressive and awesome.
Well, it's a lifetime of collecting. I mean, in 82, I started, and then, when it ended in 94, I was still collecting. And then in 2001, when it started Blaylock, I started again. And, of course, eBay was around, and then I discovered International. Yeah. And, never stopped. And although the one problem I have now is that Skybound puts out so many covers for their issues that I can't keep up financially as well as tracking them. So I've decided that I'm only getting the Real American Hero extra covers, and I'm trying to get as many of the G.I. Joe ones, but like the Transformers and Void Rivals extra covers, I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth, money, and ability to get all those. I will at some point, but like as of now, as a completist collector, because that's totally what I am. Right. And it's been my whole life. I don't know if I shared this before, but I remember when the G.I. Joe bagged issues came out with the card in them, it was 39 to 43. I bought the bagged issue, and then I bought another one and opened it. And I realized, 40 years, 30 years later, that this was the beginning of me being a completist collector. That was the first time, because I didn't know anything about direct market, newsstand, whatever. I just got what I got from my comic shop, because I did have a pull list. And when I got those, I was like, oh, and so now, as a completist, I have everything, newsstand, direct market, Canadian prices, all that, and that's what you saw. It's like 70 boxes.
It's crazy, and when you say you're not joking, completist. I consider myself a completist because I have one of each of the American issues, But like, I do not F with the multiple covers. Like, I mean, I'll buy whatever cover I fancy, right? But like, I'm a quote unquote completist, but I don't have it in me to try to track down every cover. You've tracked down every cover because that's what your books have done too. Your books are very, very detailed, accurate accountings of all the variant covers. And in this new world we live in, comic book fans, collectors, and say new world of variant covers started in the 90s. And technically they started in the 70s with testing markets, but like variant covers for collectors in all markets.
Now, if you consider newsstand and direct market a different cover, then that is a variant. But what
no, what I'm talking about is
the actual variants.
Yeah, what I'm talking about, the actual like Whitman variants they would do, like they would test with like a different logo on the side or a different, or an actual different cover.
Yeah, G.I. Joe was and after Whitman.
Yeah, and they would do it in the like they would do it in like small market and just see in that small market how many sold, whatever. But it wasn't like this. It was more, that was a test more than it was to actually put stuff on the market. Now we live in a world of like
100 different covers.
Yeah, skybound, just a million different covers for good or ill, not taking judgment out of it. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So
I saw
that is an impressive goal that you're setting for yourself.
I saw that Transformers #1, that's now probably 3 years old, has something like 150 covers, which includes retail exclusives, second printings, or I think they're on the 11th printing, and other things. They even have alternate covers, alternate retail exclusive covers of other printings. So like the 10th printing had its own retailer exclusive, like because retailer exclusive is what like some comic shop makes a cover. So they had retailer exclusives of the 10th printing, and they're on like the 12th printing. So it's like, oh my god, like
that's crazy.
How do you and of course now we have apps and things like that really help. But like previous to that, everybody just kind of used whatever they had, Excel sheets and things like that.
I feel like I want to go down this route, but I really, because I'll just ask this question. What do you think about that for the health, and this may be putting on the spot, for the health of the comic book industry, as far as cultivating fandom? I know there's a financial health there because they wouldn't be doing this if these didn't sell, right? Didn't sell multiple copies and boost sales. So I'm not going to, put blinders on and say that that's not the case. But as far as cultivating readers and cultivating fans, what do you think that does to the market? Or what's your perspective?
So I think with apps, you can have your collection on your phone and you can go dig through a box and pick out what you want. Before, most people had to do it in their head, or they had a handwritten sheet or something, like, you know what I mean, or a little notebook. I'm at conventions all the time. I still see people walking around with like a Bellamo book, and they got marks all in it and tabs, and trying to track on whatever little toy part they're missing or something like that. So the book element was always there, but I think now with apps, it's like, okay, well, I just scroll through. I don't have that issue. I can get it. For me, I think the true answer to your question is now there's these things called key comic collectors, right? And then there's CGC, and then there's key comics that are CGC. So you get, your comic CGC. Everybody here probably knows what that is, but if not, it's the graded where it's in a book, slabbed, where it's in a book with a grade.
It turns it into a baseball card.
Right, and it has a value to that because of the cost to do it, as well as the fact that it's now preserved.
Anytime you see a slab comic book in the market, it's for all you young collector kids out there trying to put your comic collection together. Anytime you see a slab comic book that is priced either $50, $60, or lower, like something in that range, that is not a collectible comic book, right? Because it costs them between $30 and $40 to actually even get it slabbed.
Yes.
Depending, the price varies, but for the most part, it's around that. So anytime you see like on eBay, like, you get this slab for a steal at $35, $40, you are literally paying just to have what they put in to have that book slabbed.
Yeah,
there is no value to that comic book. Now, if you want it slabbed and that's what you want, I'm not here to judge that.
Right.
But like, if you think you're getting some kind of discount on a collectible book or something, you're really not.
Yeah. And
then anytime you buy an actual collectible book, a book that actually does have value in and of itself, always deduct that $30, $40, $50 off whatever the selling price is, and that's what the true value of that book would be. And so make that judgment when you are choosing, when you're paying for it. Is this guy overvaluing it? Imagine this plus the slab price or minus the slab, however you want to figure it out. Remember that. So an easy rule of thumb is $50, but $35, $40 is probably more accurate per book. So that's
all you collectors out there.
Yes.
Now you can take that home and tell your parents you learned a little something about comic collecting from old Stoney.
So throughout comic collecting history, the whole point was to understand the story, right? That's why
Right.
people wanted to get the issues, right?
Right.
Because you're like, wait a minute, I missed number 32 and I have 33 and 31. What the hell happened in 32?
Right.
So that's
and there'd be a footnote in 33
Right.
that said this just happened in 32, and you're
Right.
like, I don't have 32.
Right.
I need to go get it.
so everybody wanted to collect comics for that reason, for
Right.
the story between the pages. But now in our modern world, it's not so much about the story between the pages. It's other than what event happened in there, a new uniform, a new character,
Yeah.
a death or something like that. So those all become the key comics that people want, right? They get that. So that's my answer to your question regarding the health of it is that the key comics in a CGC, say like a 9.8, are like off the charts, what everybody wants. Right, but not everybody can afford those and get those. But then it just kind of slides down, and all these other issues that people have are that nothing eventually happens in except for the story. People don't want, right, and they're not CGCing them and whatever. Right. And you can still find hundreds of thousands of them out there. And for me as a collector, like because I just focus on GI Joe, I can handle getting all that because I started getting them for a long time. But in order to collect all the whole run, I think a lot of people, first of all, they don't have the space. Second of all, they don't have the money and they don't want all those other issues.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So you get the key comic collectors, the CGC collectors, and are they looking to turn and swap that comic? Yes, at some point, but they are also collecting it to be a collector. And I think that's what has changed dramatically in comic collecting, is that nobody wants the whole run anymore.
Yeah, and I truly believe I appreciate that. I appreciate that perspective, and I think you're accurate in the assessment. One of the reasons I truly believe that is in writing for the trade, you're writing for the collection.
Yes.
The combination of that and doing 15 different covers for each issue. And I'm not talking about second printings. If
Right.
you're doing a second printing and you want to do a different cover, that actually makes sense.
Right.
Because it literally differentiates it, identifies it as not the original.
Right.
But when issue 1 comes out or issue 15 and someone dies in it, but issue 15 has 15 different covers, right?
Right.
And it's regular. Every month is a different.
Yeah.
It's 5 different versions of
Yeah.
it. I think you're devaluing your long-term affection.
Mm-hmm.
Because in every reader's head, we talk about every reader's head, they had a different story about Snake Eyes. Every reader thinks of that issue in a different way.
Right.
Because they all have different covers.
Yeah.
So none of those covers reflect anything that actually is going on in there. Maybe one of them does.
Right.
But for the most part, they don't.
Yeah, usually cover A, maybe, but beyond
maybe.
that.
That's a maybe.
It's beyond that,
So if it's an issue, if you look at all the G.I. Joe issues, let's use the examples we're dealing with that everyone's going to be familiar with. You look at all the issues, man, all those covers, all those Mike Zeck covers, man, they had something to do that was happening in that issue, If the Dreadnoks were in it, they were on the cover. Zartan was in it, he was on the cover.
Right. It may have been the second story going on in that issue, but
it may have been a sub-story,
connected.
but it's, something's going on. You could point to them all. They all dealt with what was happening between the pages because they were trying to sell you on the adventure. It's selling you in the book, certainly, but selling you also on the adventure. And this is a tease of what's happening on the inside of the book.
Yeah.
And that factor, they're not covering what's in the book, that there's also 16 different versions of a comic book. So, I couldn't tell you what the cover, I could not tell you what the cover for issue XYZ was because I don't know.
Right.
Because in your collecting, you end up seeing 5 different versions of that cover. So your brain goes mush. There's also not a continuity of artists, so there's not a huge run of.
Right.
There will be the A covers do.
Yeah.
But then every other cover is done by a totally wildly different artist, so it's not like the Mike Zeck era,
right,
or the this era, or that era. And then writing for the trade, you have multiple issues go by where nothing happens. Yeah, it's all navel gazing.
I find that so interesting because it's how can you have a comic that has nothing going on?
Yeah,
when you only have 22 pages or 20 now,
and it's
you got to pack it full.
And
of
there's stuff like character beats,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're talking about obviously you write character first and write good characters and all that stuff,
right?
But ultimately, comic books are about moments. Comic books are about things that happen. They're very plot driven. I don't subscribe to the theory of it's a different medium than if you're writing for the screen or you're writing, you're telling a drama with humans interacting or performing it. Like, no, comic books are drama. They're soap operas.
Yeah, they are.
And when you write for the trade, everything just gets so drawn out that what used to be able to be accomplished plot-wise or story-wise in 1 or 2 issues now takes 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not memorable.
Right.
It's that one issue where this one thing happened, and then holy cow, next issue this happened.
Right.
And in the modern view of it, you've watered it down to where this is the trade that this big one thing happens.
Right.
And all these small moments that fill out the 22 pages are these cool character beats, but it's filled with just kind of conversational dialogue between people instead of active dialogue of, again, using the Joe as the example, we got to go rescue Straw Hacker. Okay, next panel. They're on the plane.
Right.
Now it's, we got to go rescue Straw Hacker, and we get a full page of them walking to the plane, talking about their complex emotions about rescuing Straw Hacker.
Right.
Right? Versus, back in the day, it would be as they're jumping out of the plane, they'd be like, I'm a little torn about rescuing Straw Hacker. That's okay. We'll be all right.
Right.
You get that moment, but you get it in the middle of them jumping out of the plane to go land in,
it's a
Bisma.
I hadn't quite ever thought of it that way. I mean, but you're right. That's, and again, I think maybe that comes out of the 90s where, splash pages were the big thing. I mean, splash pages had always happened, especially the first thing.
Yeah.
So a full
Kirby
splash page, but like
Eisner.
all of a sudden, in the 90s, Rob Liefeld and the Image guys and all were like, every page is a splash page or every other page. And so
it's reactional.
More art.
It's reactional, yeah. So the 90s was more art driven and less wordy.
Right.
And then the aughts brought us more wordy.
Right.
And the aughts also brought us the trade. The birth of the trade was late 80s.
Right.
But the aughts is really when the
right,
trade,
because they
trade
were like,
took
we
over.
can make more money
At
in
Barnes
this
and
other
Noble,
ways.
and, which now those places don't even exist anymore.
Right.
But this expansive, I think it's gone too far, and I think you've lost readers' connections to individual issues and attention spans. People, it used to be you'd read a book, and especially when you're younger, because you have more time when you're younger, to read comics. As we get older,
I pretty much read all these comics once, put them in the box, and I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that, but like,
but when you're a kid, like you have more time in your life, and now I totally understand they're competing with screens and stuff, so there was a lot more to take their attention. But like once a month, you would get this one book, and it would have one cover to it.
Yeah,
that was the same cover that everyone else had.
Yeah,
if your other friends read it. And you would look at that cover and you would read what happens in the pages of that one book, because there were so many things that were happening in those pages.
Yeah.
There were so many adventures that were happening.
Right.
You were highs and lows all within the beats of the one comic. Now it's, my book doesn't look like your book. Mm-hmm. So little happens through it. I can read it so quickly because there's very little dialogue, because it's just panel after panel of people navel gazing. And, I think it's just, and I know it's super get off my lawn,
Okay.
like old man, get off my lawn.
Right.
But I do think it's a storytelling trend, and I'm not talking about the content. I'm not saying, let me be very clear. People like Comicsgate and all that bullshit. Sorry, pardon my French. All that stuff. They're lunatics, and they're not great for this community. So let me be very firm on that. Because it's not about comics used to be more macho. I love it. Like, bring in diversity, bring in whatever.
Right.
But the storytelling part of it, that cuts across any desire for content, as far as what the story is. And I think that storytelling part's really suffering.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in G.I. Joe today.
No.
I think like Larry's still doing it. He still has a lot of stuff happening in each issue.
Yeah, because, I think in almost every comic, he's got at least 3 stories going on, almost always. I mean, occasionally he'll do like a one-shot where it's like, well, especially back in the 80s where he would introduce all the new toys.
Yeah.
And it'd be that one shot of all, 15 new characters and a couple vehicles, and then they, maybe they don't ever appear again. But like now in the modern day world, he definitely has two stories, and I think that doesn't fit into trades fairly well.
Correct.
So you have one story and it fits well into a trade.
It's funny. So actually, I'm realizing as I'm saying this, I'm actually not talking about G.I. Joe comics. I think one of the reasons the G.I. Joe
Right.
comics are doing really well right now is because they do all of this well. I think the Kirkman books, at least the G.I. Joe stuff of it and the Transformers stuff of it, does do this
Yeah.
well. They
Yeah.
do this well. Each comic book is a story
Right.
that can be enjoyed on its own. Obviously, like notwithstanding the Dreadnought War, that's
Right.
a multi-part.
Yeah.
And that's all of this caveats with that. If you're doing a 6-part story,
Right.
that's a big thing versus just a series of 6 issues that just go on and on with nothing happening.
Right, but I mean,
but like more mainstream superhero stuff is where my brain's at right now with this stuff. I don't
really read.
I
that
read a lot
much,
of that.
so-
I read a lot of that digitally, and it's just this. It's just issue after issue that doesn't do anything.
Right.
And but I do absolutely think that the Hama stuff is still old school because he knows how to do it.
Right.
And he trained under the best.
Yeah.
And then he in turn trained the best. And I do think Kirkman's doing a good job with just the Void Rival universe itself.
It's certainly fun.
It's certainly fun. Yeah, it's certainly
it's
fun. But I think
different,
they're capturing that spirit of things happening in the issues.
Yeah.
And so maybe just the final hurdle is maybe slow down. I don't even know if I'm telling. I honestly didn't mean this to like tell them how to do it. I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all those various covers, it makes each issue a lot less memorable.
It does.
But the storytelling inside, though, I think is pretty solid.
Yeah. But even there, the Energon side of G.I. Joe isn't having 3 or 4 stories happening at once. It's kind of maybe like 1.5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, okay, Transformers are, giving Duke depression. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually don't love. I don't love it, reviewing / discussing like newer books because they're currently being made.
Right.
And they're humans trying to make their living, and I genuinely don't mean that. In,
right.
Like I don't want to slag on specific things or whatever.
And of course,
but I'm enjoy. So I enjoy like Void Rivals, but I do think Void Rivals suffers a little bit from this. A little bit of dragging it out for collection stuff. Like I think
Right.
so that's been a little slower for me in that regard. But I think their Transformers output is
Yeah.
solid with this. Like stuff happens every issue. People
Yeah.
die. People get pummeled.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the G.I. Joe stuff. Like for the most part, it's things are happening in each issue.
I mean, the Transformers, first year won the Eisner. I
was
mean,
great.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, rip off Megatron's gun and stick it on Optimus Prime's arm,
So
like,
good.
stuff
So
like
good.
that. The fact is that like if Transformers can win an Eisner, and was it Daniel Warren Johnson can also win an Eisner for writing because he won 2 Eisners. I mean, that's the Oscars. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like you can't get any better than that. And to take a toy property book that wins an Eisner, so obviously they were doing Transformers, right? And
I mean, not since
like-
the Mad Balls comic that Marvel put out have we had such quality
right. But so you I guess the comics in general, are, the movies have done an amazing job of introducing characters to everybody. I mean, like Madam Web has her own movie. I mean, Agatha has her own TV show. You know what I mean? Like,
The best example you can come up with is Madam Web.
right? But she got a whole movie.
Oh my God, that's so terrible.
She got a whole movie though.
And shame on them for that.
Yeah, but just the fact that they did that, right?
No,
I
you're
mean,
not
like,
wrong. I mean,
like
you're not wrong.
it's
You're
just
not
a.
wrong.
She's
that
not a
movie
huge
was-
character by any means. She didn't have a huge presence, but like all of a sudden, then she has a movie, and I don't know if the comic values of her appearances went up, but they probably did a little
They
bit.
bumped a little, sure.
So, but like when in the first decade of the Marvel movies, comic books value of when a character appeared in a movie would skyrocket. I mean, like
But
that first appearance,
do you
that
know
key
that,
appearance.
Do you know that crazily enough, it didn't give a huge boost to weekly.
No,
It didn't.
Still not.
It boosted like catalog sales, you
Yeah.
know, and like trades and stuff.
back issues.
Yeah, but as far as fostering people to come in like on a weekly
No.
basis, the overall effect of that I've heard from, well, definitely from the shop that I worked at, but they're just from a lot of retailers all over. It was just like you'd get some surges, just
Right.
certainly around the time, but they weren't there to be like, let me know what's going on this month in Iron Man. It was,
Right.
I want to pick up the adaptation of that movie I just saw. And
Yeah.
so you'd be like, well, here's Extremis, and
Right.
they'd buy that and they may or may not come back.
Right.
But they're not coming back for the monthly Iron Man.
No.
They were coming back for, okay, now I want to read
Right.
Armor Wars,
And it'll be interesting to see how when the children who were 10 when Iron Man came out, which was in 2008, and really, Batman had already been around. Batman, Dark Knight, I think, was the same year, almost the same year. So like you had those two big movies, and it'll be interesting to see because that's 2008, so it's 18. So in 2028, which would be the 20-year mark of Iron Man, it'd be interesting to see how those kids who were 10 would then be 38. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do they look at Iron Man as, like we look at Star Wars when we were 10, in 1977 when Star Wars came out, right? Like that changed everything. I mean, Iron Man kind of changed everything for the movie industry to a certain degree.
Oh, for sure.
And the Transformers movies were just 2 years before that too. So
strangely enough, I'd say Iron Man changed it more than Dark Knight did.
Yeah.
Dark Knight influenced so much.
Right.
But Dark Knight also said, here's a high bar
Yes.
that none of you are ever going to be able to reach. What Iron Man said was, it's a lower bar.
Right.
And you can do it.
And we're going to make a world out of it.
Yeah. We're going to make a world out of it. But also, it's a bar that can be attainable. You don't have to have the genius of Nolan.
Yeah.
Because Dark Knight's Dark Knight's one of the...
Right.
Dark Knight's probably the most well-made comic book movie. My favorite is Superman. The movie.
Yeah.
But like Dark Knight's amazing. But that's also saying Chris Nolan, the premier director of our generation.
Yeah.
This should elevate all of you. And
Well,
Iron Man is saying, the chubby guy from the movie Made could make an Iron Man movie.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
it taught a different lesson to Hollywood. And they
Right.
were like, okay, we're going to take some of the vibes from Dark Knight, but we're going to make them like Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, Dark Knight has many claim to fames, but it's also the movie that changed the Academy from 5 Best Pictures to maybe 10.
Yeah.
Because they were like, well, there wasn't room for Dark Knight on whatever year that was. I don't even know what movie won that year. But like, they didn't even get nominated for Best Picture, and it should have. And so now that the Best Picture has like 10, and usually it is 10, like Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture. You know what I mean? So they have room. Shape of Water can win. A sci-fi movie that's like got a fish and
Didn't
a
that win the
girl
next year?
having sex.
Was that the next year that the Shape of Water won? Or within like 2 years of it?
Within a couple years,
within a couple years.
But something like that can, could win a Best Picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like now there's a little bit more sci-fi things, that are starting to be nominated, and they're finally kind of getting that together.
So what you're saying here is it's a shame that Madam Web didn't get more Oscar nominations. Josh Eggebeen is here to say that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take away nothing from this conversation, it's Josh Eggebeen is America's number one Madam Web fan, and he's here for it.
Oh, that's a bunch of shit.
Oh, I'm gonna let that swear word go through, moms and dads. If you're hearing that, we left that in because any kids listening should absolutely know Madam Web is terrible, and they should not be watching Madam Web.
But after all that is 100% right, she did get a feature movie that's in the theater.
She did.
For a random
But
bad,
you know why,
bad,
though. But you
bad
do
character
know why, though, right?
in Spider-Man.
Yeah, but
she wasn't even that great of a character in Spider-Man comics.
You do know why. They
Yeah,
did that,
Sony
though.
needed to make movies,
Right,
to keep
and
the
they
license.
they only could do the B level characters.
Yeah,
yeah,
and they did a bunch of them.
it was crazy. I mean, know
Morpheus and Venom, they're all in the same.
I don't know why they didn't just do Spider-Woman, but actually, that's a rights thing. I remember hearing about this, that they couldn't do Spider-Woman. That's why in that movie she's not called Jessica Drew.
Okay.
So Jessica Drew was the original Spider-Woman, but then the other Spider-Woman was the white and black one. That's what I'm thinking of. They don't use her real name. They changed it in that movie, even though she's supposed to be the one from Secret Wars.
Right.
Because there is a rights issue about that. And I think there's a rights issue about Jessica Drew too. Otherwise, they would have been dumb to not just do a straight up Spider-Woman movie, like a Spider-Woman mystery.
I mean,
kind
she
of thing.
had her own comic book series for a really long.
Oh yeah,
long
no,
time. I don't think Madam
Web
Web really had her own series.
Oh no, no, absolutely not. Madam Web looks like Aunt May.
Yeah.
and is a decrepit old lady who sees the future.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
how is that is crazy. Anyway, this isn't Joe on Madam Web. It is actually, it's welcome everybody. Welcome back to Josh on Madam Web. We're here today to talk about.
Yes,
That's
we have-
awesome.
we
That
have
was
to
great.
transition
That was
away from
great.
it.
So we are going to
But-
transition into, well, we're talking about world building. We're talking about comics and how the comics. We're talking about Renegades, man. And Renegades came about, and it was. And you were saying this before we got on that this is the last cartoon that a whole generation of Joe fans or just young kids in general looking to discover G.I. Joe.
Right.
This is the last cartoon they have.
So I don't even know what year was this that came out.
What was it? 2000 and I want to say it's 2010.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. I don't have my phone, but should Google that.
Should be right here. G.I. Joe Renegades 2010.
10, yeah.
Yeah, 2010.
So now, as we record this, it's
we're going on 16 years.
16 years. Yeah, and so that's a sizable time of generations. I mean, they reference a generation as a 20-year period, right?
Yeah.
Like just in general. So, in 20 years, you have enough people that go from 0 to 20. They go from being born to an adult. So at this point now, there's no kids that are alive that are under 20 that have ever seen.
And they only have the movies.
A
and
cartoon.
Those movies aren't going to appeal very much to young kids.
Right.
I mean, they're whatever. Take away merits, whether it's good or bad, whatever. They're not really appealing towards like the youth.
Yeah.
The 10-year-old.
No.
It's interesting though. You talk about 20 years because by the time they do get that Energon cartoon, which I really hope it happens.
Right.
By the time they get
You're
that
talking about the recently announced Energon.
Yeah. By the time they get off the ground, it'll
Kirkman
probably be very close to 20 years. It'll
Yeah.
probably be at least 3 years till they get that off.
Yeah.
And then we'll be into 2029.
Right. And of course that immediately will cross over with Transformers. So you have the Transformers audience watching that as well as G.I. Joe. And the Transformers audience is very different than the G.I. Joe audience, but yet I love to always brag that G.I. Joe made so much money in 1982 that they went to Japan and bought Transformers. Hasbro did. So if you're a Transformers fan, you have to say thank you to G.I. Joe because literally the money that they spent on Transformers was from our toys. So good luck beating that one.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
you might have bigger box office of the movie and more fans.
Those guys are sitting on their mountains of toys and comic books and going, okay, that was great. That's great. It's a great story, bro. Cool story, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, I've got my actual functional transforming Soundwave over here.
Yes.
That's literally a robot that can actually transform and speak to me. You guys enjoy your...
hey, but Soundwave transforms into a thunder machine.
He does.
He does. So we do have G.I. Joes that G.I. Joe vehicles that transform into Transformers.
Yep.
His tank Megatron.
Love it.
Bumblebee Stalker.
Yeah, and then there's Bumblebee. Sergeant Slaughter's
Ostriker.
Triple
T, yes.
And that's Cup. Triple T is Cup.
So there's 4.
There's 4, yeah.
So that's good.
It's all exciting. Exciting.
And that the thing is that Transformers animated, between the cartoons and all, have always been bigger than the comics, right? For that, and Transformers, the Transformers 1 movie that just came out was awesome.
Oh, that movie was great.
And they dumped it in September, the worst month to have a movie in a theater.
That entire marketing team should be fired.
Yeah, they should have been,
because
that should have been a July 4th movie.
Yeah, it was marketed
or Thanksgiving
terribly.
Yeah,
marketed terribly and released.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. So Transformers can get cartoons right. You know what I mean? That they've been able to get it right. And G.I. Joe, I think, even the animated from the 80s was beloved, and the animation was pushing the envelope in terms of what they were doing.
I like the Transformers cartoon a lot, but what I really liked is like season to season, their shifts in characters were awesome because it was, just very much like G.I. Joe, where it's the it's the new roster, it's the toy for that year, but like they were doing the units, like, so G.I. Joe had stuff like Night Force and Tiger Force and stuff, but those were repaints of, these were brand new units, aerial bots and Stunticons and like that, and Dinobots. Like that was like, it was units of people, but fresh brand new characters that you're just exciting. It's exciting to watch them. Just is. And then visually it pops differently on the screen.
Right.
Yeah, and then they do the movie, and then they come back and it's a whole new world. You
Yeah.
know, like they're fighting randomly different
Right.
people. Like they really, I think they did with the Sunbow Transformers cartoons. They really did more change than the G.I. Joe stuff ever did.
Right.
You know, ever. And who knows what they would have done had they survived, not gone to DIC. You know,
Right.
there's always they talk about they were going to pick up after
Yeah.
Corolla and all that stuff, and that would have been amazing.
Right.
But like they didn't do it. So
Right.
not having that.
Right.
G.I. Joe doesn't have that element of change that the Transformer cartoons do. And
Yeah.
so I do like going back and watching those and enjoying that for variety's sake. So, but anyway, we got to get to this.
Okay.
So
the thing with Renegades is that
we're gonna wait. We're gonna hold on that.
Okay.
Because we're gonna get to it, and we're gonna
All
talk
right.
about this over the show.
Okay. All right.
So listeners, you're out there. First of all, Josh Eggebeen, absolutely. Josh, where do they find the AAR report?
AfterActionReport.net. You can buy all of our books, which are 9 books: comic guides, character guides, a trivia book. The character guides are called Command Files, and that covers the entire G.I. Joe team, written by Greg Augustin. And then we have 5 books based on the comics, and we do have one that's a Transformers G.I. Joe checklist book, so it covers all of the G.I. Joe and Transformers comics just as a list from 82.
Yeah, so if you're a
84.
completionist, these are the kind of books you want to get. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. Also, I don't know, as we're recording this, we're not sure when like the next book is going to be announced, and we're not primed for that.
Yes.
But you guys do them on Kickstarter. So when they do those books, you also then give people the opportunity to buy any books that they may have missed. So you can go to AAR.net.
AfterActionReport.net.
AfterActionReport.net.
AAR.net is
else?
some kind of construction company.
So
You're not going to find what you need
go
there.
to AfterActionReport.net and you can buy the books there, or if you know you're paying attention to it and they're like, we're doing a new Kickstarter, you can always buy their books in arrears.
Yes.
And get caught up on it. And the one of the other things I want to say about when you do back these books, no one is more generous with extras and bonuses when you do these Kickstarters. Like we're in where do you call this, AAR Central?
Headquarters.
HQ, and you've got your wall adorned with all these bonuses and extras, and you give them to me. So when I've done my giveaways, I've given them away to our listeners too. But there's all these great posters by different artists of all types, and you guys get them all printed up.
Yep.
And they're just slid in. They're just included.
It's all our cover art.
Yeah, it's
generally.
cover. Yeah, it's cover art. It's posters. It's spreadsheet stats of the teams from the command files.
A poster for the chain of command.
Yeah, the chain of command
it's called
stuff.
We call it the location
posters
map
of the cover,
which is where all the G.I.
It's really
Joes
cool, and
are
these
stationed.
are great. Yeah, if you're someone who likes to put like artwork up in your office or you're around your workspace to get you inspired and get you going, these are perfect for that because they're a nice glossy paper. And no one is more generous when it comes to the Kickstarter stuff. When your Kickstarters show up, it's always you do bookmarks and
postcards.
Yeah, there's always
thank you notes.
There's always an overflow.
Yeah.
So I want you to know that we all appreciate that, and listeners,
thank
you don't be surprised when you get one of these, and all of a sudden there's just all this extra stuff. You're like, I didn't order that.
Right.
And you're like, no, you didn't order that. They're just giving it to you because they're awesome.
Yeah.
So,
That's the nature of stretch goals, but also, a big shout out's got to go to all the different artists that have created our covers. We have a front and a back cover for every book that's original art. Now the Command Files, it's a wraparound cover, so that counts as one. But at this point now, I think we're like 18 original things. We had a dust jacket and all kinds of stuff. And of course we had original artists do individual characters for our Command Files books.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at last count it was something like 70 pieces of art have been done for our books.
That's amazing.
When you count the individual figures for Command Files.
Yeah.
So at some point maybe we'll do an art of After Action Report book.
Sure, that's awesome. So, listeners,
so
check
that's
them
the
out.
plug.
That's the plug. Check them out. But right now, I want you to call up your episode of G.I. Joe Renegades, episode number 5. It's the package. Spoiler alert: it's the episode where we meet Breaker, and he's awesome. All right, listeners, get your finger on the trigger, and here we go. So most of these episodes, Josh, so far have really started with like a chase. You know what I mean? It's usually This show's,
Yeah, 'cause they're on the run.
Yeah, the show's really serialized like that, which is cool. It's like the Incredible Hulk model, or most of the action '80s shows where they're on the road somewhere, they run into another town, they run into some trouble,
Right.
So at this point, the last episode, Flint and Jay had caught up to the town they were at where they fought the Dreadnoks.
Okay.
They defeated the Dreadnoks. And they were like, oh, we got to go hot on their tail. So this kind of picks up from that. But it's the way they do it, it's very modular. So even if you don't know that, the one episode end, if most of the episodes end with we got to go get them, and then most of the other episodes end with they're on our tail,
right?
You don't necessarily need to watch them 100% in order.
Right.
You just get the gist of it. So I think that's a really smart way to do this. It kind of gives it continuity, but it also lets it be modular.
Sweet.
Because you never know.
For the record, I did see this when they came out, and I have the DVD, and I think I watched it about 5-6 years ago. But in terms of for this episode, I just watched it about 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's all right.
And then, so now I'm a little
bit fresh.
A script,
you don't have a script ready?
No, I don't have a script.
So the Joes have pulled into a rail, like a shipping dock, and the Joes are in a stolen Cobra truck.
Oh, here's the intro now.
Yeah, and
I like the intro.
It's a great intro.
I thought the intro was really good.
I think
A-Team.
Yeah, it's very A-Team.
How can you not?
The whole thing's very A-Team intro. Because of the era that it was, it was right around the movie. The Cobra Commander looks way too much like he did in the movie.
Right.
It's not a 1-to-1 by any stretch,
right.
but it's way too much. They're trying to do what they were trying to do in the first movie, and boy, is that not a good look for Cobra Commander.
Yeah. Yeah,
everyone else looks pretty great.
Again, they always got to try to do something different. They can't just keep doing the same thing over and over.
They cast Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so they're trying to keep him recognizable in that look, and you're just like, nope, nope. That first movie Cobra Commander is not the stuff, man. That is not the stuff. So we find out that
maybe
this truck has a chameleon mode.
Right.
So they go from looking like a straight up Cobra one to an SSS market, which like hiss, like
right. And this is I remember from this, this was one of the cool points of this whole show, was this vehicle that they could use all kinds of do all different things with. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'll say this though,
and
it's
almost
not
clever.
It's not that transformed.
No,
it still looks like the same truck. It's just got a different paint job,
right?
And
at least in that particular frame, Lady J and Flint are looking to the right, and the truck is to the left, so they're not looking at it going, oh,
right. I do wonder if that was like
it's marked fragile,
a consideration when they were storyboarding it of like, okay, we can't.
Yeah.
It'll work enough to fool them to look the other way, but not necessarily if they look right at it. Like, boy, what could that truck be?
Right. Exactly.
So an important plot point here, because they made their truck look like an SSS or a delivery truck. Someone knocked on the back. Think of it like FedEx. It's basically FedEx. Yeah. Someone or Amazon. Actually, Amazon's the more apt here because that's what they are. They're Amazon, who's taken over the whole world.
Yes.
And someone knocks on the door and they hand roadblock package to deliver.
Stay here and check
and
every
so the Joes are like,
Units
okay.
2 and 3. We're moving on the main building.
Yeah.
Now.
I think it's kind of funny that they're like, yeah, sure, we'll deliver it.
Right.
They run into Flint and Lady J, and Lady J, just like it's just like we talked about. She obviously knew that was them in the truck,
right?
But she got Flint's attention.
Go look over there. Look over there. Look over there.
Right.
Well,
Alvin Kibbe.
I know
Scarlett knows that
He's
guy.
The Coyote.
Sounds like your type.
The Coyote. This goes back to we
So
weren't talking about
he's
this on
the
the
leading
recording, but we were
anti-Cobra
talking earlier
His
about
website
Lone
has all
Wolf.
the
Maybe
best
he's
intel
related to
on
Lone
Cobra
Wolf.
Oh. I doubt it, but you never know. So, but this was something that I remember clearly from watching this originally when this came out, was how well they introduced these other little Joe characters. You know what I mean? Like almost every episode, they kind of had somebody in that you're like, okay, Alvin Kibbe. Now, if you know the file card name, then you know already that that's Breaker.
Yep.
All right, spoiler, but whatever. But but I don't think they actually call him Breaker in here, do they? No?
At the end of it.
At the end,
he gets a nickname.
Oh yes, he does.
So what's happened here is as she was starting to open the package because they were interested in why is it going to a hacker like that. Duke noticed that it was beeping or there was a flashing light, so he stopped her from opening the package, and they quickly realized that there is a bomb in there. So they're using the old bubblegum technique to defuse the bomb,
Right.
and so they can actually open it up. Because there was a little, like a tripwire switch that if the lid came off, the bomb would have blown. So he used the bubblegum to keep the lid from the little tripwire
Right.
from being tripped. So now they go, well, why was Cobra trying to blow up Alvin Kibbe? What's up with
You
that?
sure
dude?
you didn't see them?
Yeah, and technically,
Nope.
shouldn't it have been
All right.
Tripwire, who is the ordnance?
My number's on the back.
Does have experience with defusing bombs?
Well, yeah, there's no
And-
real bomb diffuser in the crew. So Flint just showed the Joe dossiers to the FedEx guy who gave them that package,
Right.
and he did recognize Roadblock, but he didn't tell Flint. He called Cobra
Right.
to be like, "Hey, man, the Joes are here. Something's up."
Right.
And so they then in turn called Major Blood. And by the way, Major Blood, a more fully intact Major Blood than we're used to seeing
Yes.
at this point in time,
But with accent.
with accent.
Lady J has an accent too, which I'm not terribly familiar with, but like should be a New England accent.
Well, I
don't
think
know.
we settled it in this case, in this version. She's like New York, Puerto Rican.
Hi.
Like that's what that's the
Professor
vibe
Alvin
we get from this.
New
Is-
York, Puerto Rican,
She's got
okay.
like a New York kind of a Puerto Rican vibe to her.
And now we have
Step
Alvin.
out.
And Alvin
Welcome
shows
to
up.
wait for him.
They're at his college dorm. Alvin is giving 100% giving real Ghostbusters Egon vibes.
Oh yes,
Do you see that?
he needs anti-Cobra. Yep. Yeah,
got
he's
the
totally.
round, he's got
you're
the
right.
round glasses,
Yep.
the high hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
CEO being part snake.
That is fact. I
And
have
he's
photos,
yeah, see
eyewitnesses,
there you
even
go. He's
scales.
Yep.
like a conspiracy theorist, like he believes in snake
Alvin
people and
Kibbe.
all that stuff. Scarlett can't believe it because she thought Alvin Kibbe slash what's his name, Coyote,
Yes.
would be more tough guy,
Right.
that,
What do you
that
want?
kind of a thing.
We're here to help the coyote.
The other thing they have to do
on
with this
Snakebait
type of
23,
serial storytelling
remember?
is
You
and this is
told me
very
you
much
were a
comic booky. It's
professor.
very much soap opera.
Oh, Snakebait
Is you take
23.
2 steps forward, then you always usually take 1 step back. So like
Okay.
I think they already had this in the car, but maybe it's later with Roblox where they say something like, "What do you mean Cobra's trying to take over the world?" And one of the characters has to be like, "I don't know. I shop at Target a lot. Like I
Right.
shop at Cobra Mart a lot."
Right.
So they have to kind of reinforce it for the viewer that there's a little bit of a skepticism, and which
Right.
is weird because if you watch every one, you've seen these dudes like they get shot at by Cobra. You could think
Right.
after one experience like that, they'd be like, "I know everything they touch is evil."
Yeah.
But the kind of storytelling you have to massage it to
What?
get there,
Okay.
because to
That
keep the
scanner is why
illusion
Cobra
going.
wants you in 1,000 tiny pieces.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
this rushing about is necessary?
by being able to make this in 2010 as compared to, in the past, like we were talking about earlier, like you can introduce all these kind of this
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, so he
that
created a-
is
yeah, he-
relatively real.
Yeah, he
in
created
our
a
world.
scanner. He created a scanner.
Yeah.
That's what Cobra wants him for.
Yeah.
I love that Snake Eyes just showed up in their van,
Yeah.
and he hadn't been in the episode yet.
Right.
So he's been there the whole time,
Yeah.
and we didn't know it. That's some of the best. Like, I love that usage of Snake Eyes in this. He just shows up. He's not hanging out with the team, but he's in the room.
He's got to do a little hand signal,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
so-
Scarlett gets it. you
Yeah.
know.
So we had a little commercial break there, and
The
Major
information
Blood is
stored
hot
on
in
the
his trail.
scanner's hard drive might be enough to expose at least some of Cobra's criminal activities.
Yeah. So that
Look,
scanner's going to
I
expose
don't know
Cobra.
how to say this, but the scanner is temperamental.
Okay.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So of
Buzzkill
course it's not
McBrick.
perfect.
Lady just said the scanner was gold.
I've tried every hacking technique there is. If I can't break into it, no one can.
Why didn't you mention this before?
Oh, see, there's always a
Busy
wrinkle.
saving me.
There's always
There's
a-
always a
wanna
wrinkle.
distract
It's
you.
never like,
that's the storytelling that has to happen.
right.
you
But we know that's why Cobra was gonna. So now we're gonna get a little action scene. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool too. Like it's like a cop, kind of a disguised cop car. Major Blood, shooting missiles out the rack.
Yeah.
It's a very transformery looking car. So we're gonna get some action here. So, Josh, one of the things I love to do on versions of this show is to teased you with this earlier is get a code name out of you.
Oh.
So
Okay.
the question I pose is, if you were a member of the G.I. Joe or the Cobra team, what would your name be and what would your specialty be? So it's not that you are dial tone,
Right.
but like your specialty could be, you make books or something, like, you're like in real life, like
Right.
you create books, right? So maybe you do something like that for G.I. Joe, or so on and so forth. And then we come up with a code name for you.
So
what do you think your specialty would be? And
my
then what's the code?
specialty would be logistics.
Okay.
I
That's
mean,
it's huge in the military.
I don't necessarily know that I would be a frontline soldier, and I always felt like if I was in the military, I never was and never intended to be, but I always felt I'd be one of those soldiers who's like got all the smart ways to get up the chain of command without actually getting involved, and I always felt like I would be able to work around the systems, because that's what they want.
Yeah,
they want the military. So, but I spent most of my life as a logistics person for my jobs and things like that. So maybe by the end we'll figure out a logistics.
I got
name.
I mean, I got a name for you.
Oh yeah,
I got a name for you. Do you have anything in mind? Anything you might want to? I mean, it's
don't
sitting
know.
right there.
Log.
Log
in.
Log in. Okay, well, log in.
Yeah,
that's one.
Log in.
It's sitting right there so much that my brain is going, have we ever given someone else's name? Which is why it's so sitting at the front of my brain. I mean, how do you feel with the name Supply Chain?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Right?
That's
pretty
pretty good.
That's your name, right?
Yeah. That could work. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
well,
welcome to the Joe and Joe team, Supply Chain.
Thank you. I like that.
I think that's your code name. I think that's really apt.
It is, because my day job, I deliver either food or packages or people or whatever.
Do that.
So yeah. I'm in that system.
Your supply chain. So next time I see you, I expect to see your license plate fully personalized.
Personalized supply chain.
SPPLYCHN.
Exactly. Okay, we can do that.
So, listeners, supply chain.
And what's yours?
My name's Old Style.
Old what?
Old Style.
Old Style. Oh,
yeah. Named after the beer, but also because I like older things.
Right.
It was deep dish. until I finally watched the I named myself early on when we were doing this, but I had never seen the episode of Community where they did the G.I. Joe thing.
Oh, that's
and
pretty
one
fun.
of the joke it was very funny, but I had never seen it. And one of the joke characters in that episode was his name was Deep Dish.
Right.
And I was like, first of all, listeners, how come no one told me this? Like, because a lot of listeners would be like, have you watched that Community? And nothing related to deep dish stuff. They were just like, have you watched the Community? You should cover the Community episode. It's really funny. And it is totally funny. It's great. But I'm like, no one could have told me that they use deep dish. So I called myself Deep Dish on like 50 episodes. And then I finally watched it. And I'm like, well, I got to change it. I guess it's Old Style. So it's Old Style. I like Old Style.
It is ironic that we had deep dish pizza.
We did have deep dish pizza delivered in a supply chain, frozen. Right?
Yes, from Lou Malnati's.
It's not like we got it from down the street. It was
Chicago,
delivered, frozen from Lou Malnati's,
yes,
which had to go through logistical supply chain and end up in West Covina.
It was my birthday, which was in August, and it's been in the freezer since then, waiting for a special occasion.
And I loved it. I appreciated it so much. It was so good. It was so good. So so supply chain, you're on.
All right, board, man. I got it. I like it.
So the action has come to a halt a little bit. We watched them get attacked.
The snake eyes and major blood fight scene on top of the vehicle.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, we were jabbering on.
That's all right. We're describing a fight scene. Yeah. It's a fight scene. You got to watch it. If you're not watching it,
it's
turn
Snake
it on and watch
Eyes.
it.
And
he's great.
In theory, he's always such a badass that he should be able to win. Like Obi-Wan defeats Darth Maul in like one move.
Yeah, so
he's so badass.
I agree with you. So it's funny. I want to bring this up. I was on What's in Joe Mind, which would have been in like mid-November, I think, and the hot topic of getting Snake Eyes into the Energon universe in the comic book.
Yeah,
so this is what we're talking about. And I made the statement that I thought is fairly obvious. Like now, let me be very clear. I am fine with them waiting to introduce him. Right. But the longer you wait to introduce him, the more you're building up expectations for what that version of Snake Eyes is going to be. Like, but you have to do it because you can't have a G.I. Joe without Snake Eyes.
Right.
And
my
point was he's the face of the brand, ironically, because he has a messed up face. Yeah. But he's the face of the brand. He's the guy that people identify with. Most. Yeah. There's a couple other faces. You get it. Baroness and
Storm Shadow.
Yeah. I mean, there's your handful. But like, if you were to say.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Snake Eyes. He got his own movie. I mean,
you see some of G.I. Joe to the most layman, and they're like, oh, that ninja dude, the dude in the black, the dude the dude with the sword. And
Kibby.
I'm here to say, Josh, it stirred controversy on that episode.
Yeah, I did.
I had to defend the fact that Snake Eyes is the most popular G.I. Joe member.
Right.
It was insane to me. It doesn't mean he's your favorite G.I. Joe member.
He is.
I mean, he is for me, but it doesn't mean that he has to be everyone's favorite. It doesn't have to mean that he's the whatever. He's the best. The fact is, he's the face of the operation.
Yeah.
I don't understand how there could be argument against that, and there was argument against it, and people are like, Duke, and Storm Shadow, and Kobe, all the ones we just named, and I'm like, you all are high.
Yeah.
Like they've done how many
Toys. 400
There's
gotta be
or something.
Yeah, he's by far the highest.
Oh my god!
I mean, I don't know who would be closer. Maybe Cobra Commander. Probably not.
I thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
Because the comment, I love being on the show. I really do. I love the list. Like, it's fun. It was a lot of fun. But I was like, I'm going insane here. Because I'm not saying he is the best.
Right.
I'm not saying he needs to be your favorite person whatsoever. But there can't be any doubt that that's the guy.
Yeah. No. I mean, in the comic, it's starring Snake Eyes. He gets his own movie. You know what I mean? Like, he's in every iteration of everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he just kicks Major Blood's ass. And
I'm not saying that the Energon books at this point have suffered for not having him in there. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
But you have to go there.
Right.
Whatever that looks like.
Right.
If they, if they
here
do this for some reason, if they go like forever without using them,
right,
that's nuts.
I mean, they've announced that there's going to be a cartoon.
Yeah.
Why not just have Snake Eyes be the main G.I. Joe in the Energon cartoon? You know what I mean? They introduce him there. Well, and leave him out of the comic.
Here's my prediction: is an Energon blast is what's going to make him all nasty.
Right.
That seems to make sense to me, because then everyone feels they need to tie everything together.
Right.
Like you can't just have everyone have their separate origin that,
Right.
It was in a helicopter blast 5 years ago. Okay, great. No, it has to be tied into this story.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that's how it's going to roll.
We
got some Bio Vipers here. They're fighting in a warehouse, and it's Major Blood and some of these Bio Vipers from the previous episodes, the one where Ripcord got quote unquote killed, and Major Blood gets pinned by some forklifts, and Snake Eyes is pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scarlet's saving his ass again.
Yep.
Saves his ass in 21 and keeps saving his ass throughout the comics and everything.
So let me reach back to the Snake Eyes combo. I'm fine with them not holding back.
Yeah.
But let's all be clear. A, he's going to have to show up.
Yeah. And
B, the longer you wait, the more build up, which is a good thing. It can be a good thing, but you're building these expectations. It's a pressure valve.
And obviously, I think, the Scarlet Snake Eyes, relationship in almost every iteration is always there. So maybe for Energon, they're going to leave that not there or build it somehow. Build it because with
it's always we talk about this on the
escape.
first episode of Renegades.
Whatever happens, you have to get the scanner to the
Scarlet's, because there's only like one. I mean, we know Lady J, but Lady J and Flint. That's a pair made in heaven.
Yeah.
But like Scarlet always has to get paired off, and it's just a little weird to me.
Right.
Because on this show, in one scene, she's with all of her paramours. She's with Duke, Snake Eyes, and Ripcord.
Oh.
And I'm like,
right.
How many? It's always about who's Scarlet dating, and I'm like, can we get one version where Scarlet's just not dating anyone?
Right.
Like, I'd be fine with that. Where Scarlet's just Scarlet.
Well, maybe that's Energon, because she had her own series, but I don't think she's
No, she was a Jinx in that series.
Well, I don't think there was. They were just friends.
Sure.
Was there not?
Sure, they were just friends.
They weren't implying that they were gay, were they?
Oh yeah, they were.
Oh, I didn't read it that way.
Really?
I just thought they were friends, longtime friends, because they had been in college together. I didn't.
That's not. I mean, that's not how I read it.
Oh, really?
Whatsoever. I do think they left enough leeway to leave it out there.
Right. I just thought they were friends.
No, I read it
really?
as more than friends.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, because you can be roommates and not. Whatever.
Totally.
So,
I mean,
isn't that what they were? I mean, I'm not 100%. My memory on her.
Reread them.
Okay.
Reread them.
Yeah. All right.
And I'm not saying that's a criticism of them.
Right.
But my criticism is it's always about who's Scarlet dating.
Right.
And I'm like, it would be a little refreshing to just not actually deal with that.
That's true. That's
like,
true.
You know.
So yeah, maybe
Like,
they won't
let's
even
explore the dating life of like Roadblock.
Right.
You know, if we need a romantic lead in the universe, do it with someone else.
Right.
It doesn't have to be always with Scarlet, but it's always Scarlet.
Right.
And I know that may sound
that
may sound dumb and naive.
I don't think in any iteration ever in anything G.I. Joe has there ever been a gay character. Has there? No. Not that I know of.
I mean, not outwardly, no. So
Blood's
the
getting
Joes escape.
damaged.
Major Blood now has lost his eye. They don't show it, which is cool. But the next time we see him, I'm sure he's gonna have the eye patch on.
Right.
There was he was gonna blow them up with a missile, but the building exploded first, and they used that package from the beginning of the episode, which is a cool callback. He then lied to Cobra and said he lied. He straight up lied.
Yeah,
because they didn't get blown up. He knows they didn't get blown up, but he said they got blown up and they got away. But here we go.
How about Breaker?
There you
'Cause if
go.
you can't
Because if he can't break it, no one can.
Well,
You
you
got
know,
it. The little
nickname
scanner, real quick, the little scanner they had
right.
did get destroyed, so they're not going to be able to use that. But they're going to bring Coyote/Breaker. They're going to bring him into the team, and he's going to help them fight Cobra.
Yeah. Well, you know, the fact that you just gave me a nickname of supply chain or code name is pretty appropriate because that's part of what the main story of this was about in the whole warehouse and everything like that.
Yeah. See what I'm saying? These we were talking earlier with the end credits. They're done on Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing fancy. They spent no money, which is fine.
Right.
I want to see all the money in the movie.
The script coordinator, Marguerite, is a big Transformers writer. She got a...
Oh, nice.
I didn't realize 2010. I guess that would have been in the IDW era. Yeah. So she was...
you're right. I know. I can't
Scott,
remember.
Marguerite,
yes.
if you go back to her credits, she's the script coordinator. So they had the Transformers comic writer in 2010, which would have been IDW era, on the cartoon.
So you asked the question. I need Joe.
Margarita Scott is her name.
I need Joe's gay.
I don't think so.
Not outwardly.
No.
That I can recall. I think there were. Let me think. Were there any coded? And I'm sure if you really go looking for it, you could find some. Just because, especially back in the day, in like the 80s.
I don't know. Back in the day, there was nothing.
Well, no, but like a lot of writers coded things. You know, like North Star in the X-Men. He was coded.
I don't think Hammond was even thinking that way.
Oh no. I'm not saying that he was.
Right.
What I'm saying is, in comic books in the 80s, in order to get some of that across without being overt about it, writers would code things. So, like Mystique and Destiny were coded gay, but they were never explicitly stated. North Star was coded gay, never explicitly stated until later, in the 90s. Right. So, no, the answer is no, I don't believe so, but it'd be interesting to go back and, I don't want to do it, but it'd be interesting to go back and look at it, and maybe there was a character here or there that may have been coded,
Yeah, maybe.
A gay stare. I'm not saying there is or was, but may have been coded that.
I mean,
because they weren't gonna come out outright.
Right.
And say
if you looked at the file cards, there was definitely nothing remotely that way.
Yeah, but they didn't. But I would say none of the file cards really addressed it either way. None of them said.
In the cartoon they do some cross dressing.
Well, yeah, right. But none of them. I mean, they didn't. The only dating, like I said, the only dating stuff is ever with Scarlet and whoever, and the Baroness. And the Baroness and whoever.
And
I guess the Mainframe and Zorana.
Right, and
Flint
and Lay J, and then later on Shipwreck and CoverGirl.
Yeah, that was fun.
That one works.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Statistics show us the statistically population-wise, Josh. The answer is yes.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, and I mean, Renegades here kind of shows the characters that they chose. Tunnel Rat and Roadblock and Duke and Scarlet, and Snake Eyes. You cover the basis there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So and those characters' looks and styles aren't new. You know what I mean? So they weren't converting any character, to anything in that way. So that's again the choices that they made for Renegades.
Yeah, and it's also it's
you
also
get the little diversity, but it's already there, so it's not forced or anything like that.
It's also a kids cartoon,
right?
Like of what
right. And
let's tell the military story. Let's not in any direction.
Yeah, and this is the thing that one of the things that I remember as a kid being confused about was like the character size, because all the GI Joes are 3 3/4, but yet in the cartoon they were different sizes, and so my toys were never matched. And in the comic they were mostly the same size. Roadblock was bigger, but then now with classified toys, they do the different.
They do
size.
Different scales. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So Roadblock is bigger, and Ton of Rats is a little smaller.
I mean, that's awesome.
And I always thought that was like, okay, that's really awesome now. Again, that's a form of cost and style and ability to make the kind of differences.
Yeah. Well, back then they also all had to fit in specific cockpits.
Yes.
And specific vehicles.
Right.
Now, one, there's very few vehicles for that size that they would even need to fit in, and two, if one of them can't fit in it, oh well.
Right.
You still
and that would only be Roadblock pretty much.
Back then it was like you had to make sure everyone fit in everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially as far as like costume pieces. You know what I mean? Like it couldn't be too, like they couldn't have giant shoulder pads because that wouldn't fit in the vehicle. So you had to pare it down. So even though if you were drawing it in the cartoon, they had this ornate look, but you couldn't do it on the action figure because it would not fit.
Right. Or it had to be an accessory that could be
put
on like
they would compensate with it
or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, Josh, or should I say supply chain?
I like that one.
Yeah, very exciting. Thank you for having
having
me in your home.
Thanks for coming to
being on the show.
See the collection, and it's mostly me looking at it or scanning them or putting them in books and whatever. But every once in a while, somebody comes by and it gets to show off.
Always hard to work on something, and I appreciate it so much.
It's nice.
One final, I guess to get your final thoughts on like this episode of Renegades and just Renegades in general. You recommend? You like?
Well, as I said earlier, I haven't seen these in a long time, and my opinion of any G.I. Joe story is that Cobra should never win.
Okay.
Right? I don't like these stories where Cobra is like the overall dominating, like control everything. There's like Larry Hama did it in like 156, Cobra takes over, and there's a World on Fire comic series, and it always kind of seems to be that Cobra wins or like they're the controlling thing, and I don't like that storyline.
Yeah.
So, and of course that's the whole basis of this show. So I'm starting off like not liking that storyline because of that. Because I don't want Cobra winning. I don't, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
I do know what you
G.I.
mean.
Joe. G.I. Joe is always supposed to win.
Yeah.
And so, but in terms of if I can divorce myself from that thought, it's very entertaining, right? I mean, and of course, being the last cartoon that we have, there's nothing else to compare it to modern in terms of art style or anything like that, right? I mean, and so
I think I think it looks good. It's a little. I've talked about this before. I think the color scheme's a little drab, for my taste. It just so that no one individually pops.
Right.
Trying to go for a more realistic look.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of memorable popping.
And the fight scenes aren't extremely kinetic, which is a lot of animation these days. Fast, slow, and hi-ya, and all that kind of stuff. So the fighting, especially that Snake Eyes Major Blood scene, was just. Pretty cool.
It was cool.
But it wasn't like super stylized or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously a choice. You know what I mean?
Also, I think one of the big differences is the score too.
Okay.
Versus like the old stuff that we, like the old one felt like the score was always a choice for the moment. Where this feels like they have it. They have their score and they just overlay it in moments.
Other versions of the theme.
Same theme,
there
were so many variations, and like when you listen to that soundtrack album with all those tracks, like there were so many versions and different scores within the score.
Right.
That from scene to scene, in one episode, it really brought your emotions up.
Right.
In most of the stuff
you're talking about the Real American Hero.
Real American Hero.
Sunbow. Right?
Yeah, Sunbow stuff. Yeah. Definitely DIC was terrible. It's score wise. And then with this stuff, it's a fun score, but it's all variations of one score,
right?
And so
it's
different sections of that score peppered throughout, and I think that doesn't make it feel as dynamic or as exciting as
Right.
the Sunbow stuff, regardless of whatever the animation is.
Yeah.
That score really does something when you watch the old Sunbow stuff. It sets the mood. It gets you excited or slows you down or picks you up. It does what a good score does for any piece of any piece of art. So I do think that's one of the things
And
that
back
I
then,
hope they
it
address.
wouldn't have been created in a computer. It would have been
Right.
a real orchestra playing those real instruments. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm sure for Renegades here, it was all digital.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I hope they
hit
do
a bunch
something
of
like
buttons
that
and-
in whatever the cartoon looks like.
Right.
I really hope that they try to capture more of that sound of scoring each episode versus
Right.
just laying a soundtrack in.
You know, with a Skybound, cartoon for G.I. Joe or for Energon, I guess it's Transformers, it would be interesting to see how well, like, the Skybound fans, right, which would be, Walking Dead fans and, Invincible fans, how much, because Invincible is like a really successful cartoon.
Oh, Invincible's
right?
great. Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see if those fans who don't give a shit about Transformers or G.I. Joe, or like that's not their thing, because maybe it's not their generation, but they are Walking Dead fans. Like, will they come over through that cartoon because it's Kirkman and because it's Skybound and learn about Transformers and G.I. Joe?
Time will tell.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, if, this is something that we all talk about at every convention I ever go to, is like, who's coming up after us for G.I. Joe? Right? There's not a younger generation.
No.
And, to a certain degree, some of the Gen X children will be like, well, my dad had all these toys. I like these toys. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that element. And, there may be a lot of Gen X children are like, high school to college or somewhere in that area.
With $25 to $30 toys sitting on the pegs.
Right.
That's not going to
And the collectors buy them all before the kids can even get them.
Exactly. And that's not going to engender youth.
Right.
Collecting.
So
you've introduced a conundrum that we don't have time to talk about, Josh. We got to wrap this up.
Okay.
So, listeners, I appreciate you so much, and Josh, I appreciate you so much.
Oh man, it's great. Thanks for coming. And
oh man,
it's always fun to talk to you and hang out.
I agree so much. It's always great to have you on. So, listeners, go to afteractionreport.net.
Yep. Get whatever you
check
need.
out their books.
They're all there.
And just follow us on socials and do all that stuff. And Yo Joe and Merry Christmas and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Because we're probably in the new year at this point.
My new phrase I like to say is Yahoo and Yo Joe.
Well, the phrase we like to say on this show is now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.
All right, that's a good ending.